The Cyclops reaches, a name whispered with a mixture of reverence and dread across the fragmented cartography of the Imperium, designating a vast, sparsely charted stellar expanse near the galactic core. It was a region where the Emperor's light flickered, swallowed by nebulae of unknown composition, and the crushing gravitational pull of the galactic heart. For the Adeptus Mechanicus, however, it was a frontier of boundless promise, a dark sea wherein untold STC fragments and forgotten technologies might lie dormant, waiting for the righteous touch of man to awaken them. It was into this deep, churning void that the 14 Mechanicus explorator fleet, a formidable armada of over 50 vessels, carved its slow, deliberate path. At its vanguard stood the Spiritus Omnissiah, a venerable arc Mechanicus, its vast, crescent-shaped prow a tapestry of antennae, sensor arrays, and ancient cogitator banks, each glowing rune a testament to its sacred purpose. Within its colossal hull, Magos Explorator, Prime Valerius, Thol, a figure of daunting intellect and unyielding resolve, oversaw the expedition. Thol was a man more machine than flesh, his original form long since subsumed by a gleaming exoskeleton of polished adamantium and intricate servoskeletons, his organic components reduced to the bare necessities, protected and enhanced by an array of life-sustaining technologies. His ocular implants, multifaceted and perpetually shifting in hue, constantly processed torrents of data, while his dozens of manipulators, each tipped with a different augmetic tool or sensor, twitched with a nervous energy that belied his otherwise stoic demeanor. He was driven by a singular, consuming ambition to uncover a technological revelation so profound it would forever alter the destiny of mankind, an ambition that bordered on obsession, blurring the lines between zealous pursuit and outright hubris. For 12 Terran cycles, the Chuanhaozuqikin fleet had scoured the empty sectors, its sensorium probing through cosmic dust and radiation, charting uncharted star systems and classifying countless dead worlds. They had found relics, yes, an STC fragment for an improved plasma conduit, a partial blueprint for a new pattern of autosentry, but nothing truly transformative, nothing to sate Thol's burning hunger for discovery. The journey was a test of faith and endurance, the Cyclops reaches proving to be an unforgiving void, filled with gravitational anomalies, radiation storms, and the distant, unsettling hum of unidentifiable energies emanating from the galactic core, whispers of machine spirits growing restive, of Skitarii legions experiencing data ghosts within their noospheric uplinks, began to circulate among the lower-ranking engine seers, but Thole dismissed them as the inevitable strains of deep void travel. Then the discovery came, not from a methodical sensor sweep, but from a sudden, inexplicable disruption of the Spiritus Omnissiah's primary navigators, a momentary blindness that plunged the bridge into a frantic, cacophonous symphony of alarms. When the systems stabilized, the augurs presented an impossible image, an object of colossal scale, hundreds of kilometers in length, perfectly geometric, yet utterly alien, drifting silently through the void. It was not a natural celestial body, nor was it a conventional starship. It was shaped like an immense, petrified bloom, crystalline and organic forms intertwined in an impossible fusion, reflecting the distant starlight with a dull, obsidian sheen. It possessed no identifiable propulsion, no external weaponry, no discernible command bridge. It was simply there, a monumental, silent enigma. Magnify Omicron 7, Thole's voice, synthesized and layered, cut through the tense quiet. Analysis on every spectrum. Identify its composition. The data slates glowed with frenetic activity. Composition unknown, Magos Prime, reported a nervous tech priest. It does not register as metal, ceramite, or any known Xenos alloy. Its structure, it seems to be an impossible fusion of biological and synthetic matter. Inert, no energy signature detected. Thole approached the main holographic display, his manipulators tracing the contours of the anomaly. Inert? A vessel of this magnitude? Impossible. Nothing drifts silently for millennia without decay or gravitational capture. This is deliberate. He reached out, his augmetic hand seeming to caress the holographic projection of the colossal structure. It is a chrysalis, a cocoon of ultimate potential. He immediately ordered the entire fleet to a defensive posture, a standard precaution against unknown Xenos threats, but his true intent was clear. This was not merely an object of study. It was a revelation. He dispatched a small flotilla of research frigates, escorted by heavily armed destroyers, to approach the titanic construct. As they drew closer, the scale became even more breathtaking. The chrysalis, as Thole had named it, dwarfed even the Spiritus Omnissiah. Its surface was an intricate tapestry of crystalline filaments interwoven with hardened organic plates, resembling both the carapace of some colossal insect and the fractal geometry of a perfect machine. There were no obvious hatches, no docking ports, no signs of habitation or damage. It was as if it had bloomed from the void itself, a creation of unimaginable power, now in a state of profound dormancy. Thole felt an intellectual fervor unlike anything he had ever experienced. The Omnissiah had guided them here, to this moment. This was not mere technology. This was an apotheosis of the machine. He believed, with the certainty of a zealot, that within this silent behemoth lay the answers to ancient mysteries. Perhaps even the true understanding of the motive force itself. For the Adeptus Mechanicus, to find such a pristine, colossal relic from an unknown, impossibly advanced civilization was not merely an act of discovery, but an act of spiritual communion. He transmitted his orders across the fleet. This is a sacred discovery. Deploy every available Auspex array, every sub-quantum sensor. Prepare all interfacing protocols. We shall awaken the sleeping god. The thrill of the unknown, the promise of forbidden knowledge, had taken root deep within Magos Thole's augmented heart, blossoming into a zealous determination that would, in time, consume everything. For weeks, the colossal, inert form of the chrysalis remained a cosmic riddle, mocking the apex of Imperial Mechanicus ingenuity. Magos Thole, alongside his most accomplished tech priests and engine seers, oversaw a relentless barrage of diagnostic protocols, power injections, and data siphoning attempts. Tens of thousands of kilometers of armored cables, thick as the trunks of ancient Terran sequoias, snaked from the Spiritus Omnissiah and its accompanying frigates, attempting to graft themselves onto the chrysalis's obsidian smooth skin. Psychic probes, guided by astropaths straining at the limits of their sanity, sought a telepathic bridge into its slumbering mind. Noospheric whispers, broadcast on frequencies thought to resonate with primal machine spirits, were beamed endlessly into its silent depths. Every known interfacing protocol, every STC-derived algorithm, every theoretical framework for contacting advanced Xenos technology was thrown at it. But the chrysalis remained obdurate. Its surface, a seamless blend of crystalline outcroppings and impossibly dense organic plating, repelled all physical attempts at penetration, blunted all energy drills, and absorbed all laser lances without so much as a scorch mark. Its interior, as far as deep void Auspex arrays could discern, remained a void within a void, utterly bereft of energy, signatures, life signs, or conventional technological constructs. It was a monument to an unknown science, frustratingly beyond the grasp of even the Mechanicus's unparalleled understanding. Frustration began to fester amongst the fleet's technical echelons. Doubt, a cancerous thought in the rigid dogma of the Mechanicus, threatened to spread. Was this a truly inert construct? A derelict of such impossible design that it was merely an cosmic oddity, a monumental husk of a forgotten empire? Magos. Thol, however, refused to yield. His ocular implants burned with an almost feverish intensity, his manipulators constantly sifting through impossible data streams. He spent days entombed in his private data crypts, a sanctum within the spiritus omnisia, where only the most esoteric cogitators and forbidden Xenos analysis protocols were permitted. He ignored the increasingly agitated reports from Archdomina Zenith, his pragmatic second-in-command, concerning fleet resource depletion, and the spiritual malaise affecting the Skitarii legions. Thol believed, with the unshakable faith of a true visionary, that the chrysalis was not inert, but merely asleep, and that its awakening required a key unlike any known to the Imperium. Then, a breakthrough, not a thunderous activation, but a subtle, almost subliminal resonance. From the deepest core of the chrysalis, a faint energy signature began to pulse. It was not electromagnetic, nor gravitational, nor even psychic in any identifiable form. It was a complex, multidimensional wave, a harmonic signature that defied all known categorization. Thol, having attuned his most sensitive experimental cranial implants directly to the chrysalis's perceived location, was the first to detect it. He locked onto the anomaly, feeding it into his primary cogitator matrix, allowing the alien patterns to wash over his augmented mind. It is not asking for power, nor for data in our conventional understanding, Thol articulated, his voice a low thrum of synthesized wonder. He stood before a holographic projection of the chrysalis, its intricate surface now overlaid with swirling, impossible energy patterns of vibrant green and violet. It is a demand for a specific biological coherence, a resonant biomass input. His attending engineers exchanged uneasy glances. Biological input? Magos Prime? Ventured a junior engineer, his voice strained. But for what purpose? Data transcription? Energy conversion? We are dealing with a science beyond our understanding, Thol declared, sweeping a multi-jointed manipulator across the data readouts. Its systems are not built for crude M-class power conduits or binary data streams. They require a form of organic synthesis. The energy pattern, it is akin to a complex biological waveform, a signature of life itself, but structured with the precision of a masterwork machine. It seeks integration, not mere consumption. He paused, his ocular implants focusing on the trembling engineer. The chrysalis, by its very nature, is a living machine, or a machinate life form. To awaken it, we must speak its language. A flicker of nascent horror crossed the faces of some tech priests, but Thol's conviction was absolute, radiating from his every augmented pore. Bring forth the degraded servitor units from the Pax Technologicus refit docks, the units deemed beyond standard cogitation repair, those whose flesh is failing faster than their augmetics. They are scarcely more than automatons of flesh already. Their degradation is perfect for this initial bio-assimilation trial. The order rippled through the fleet, carried by encrypted noospheric signals. Within hours, a shuttle laden with a dozen servitors, their forms slumped and inert, was dispatched from the Pax Technologicus, a venerable heavy cruiser repurposed as a mobile repair and resupply depot. These were the dregs of imperial biomass, their minds surgically excised, their bodies repurposed into crude, unthinking labor. Some were former penal legionnaires, others citizens too damaged by industrial accidents or radiation exposure to be anything but tools. Their limbs were crude augmetic replacements, their faces frozen masks of agony or vacant stupidity, their organic components barely clinging to life. They were, in the cold logic of the Mechanicus, expendable assets, biomass to be discarded or repurposed, not living beings worthy of the Emperor's light. This rationalization, convenient and chilling, allowed Thol to silence the faint, almost unheard whisper of disquiet within his own augmented consciousness. The shuttle docked at one of the chrysalis's few visible protuberances, which Thol had designated as the primary bio-interface node. It wasn't a hatch, but a subtle depression in the crystalline carapace, a faint luminescence now pulsing from its depths, mirroring the harmonic signature Thol had detected. Under the watchful, unblinking eyes of the explorator fleet, the servitors were offloaded. Their heavy forms were maneuvered by heavily armored Skitarii into the pulsating depression. As the first servitor was pushed forward, its crude augmetic leg scraping against the alien surface, the chrysalis responded. The luminous depression expanded slightly, revealing an inner cavity shimmering with a soft, internal light. Strange, organic, metallic tendrils, fine as silk, but clearly possessed of immense tensile strength, extended from the maw, coiling around the servitor's torso and limbs. There was no rending, no tearing, no audible sound of flesh being torn. Instead, the tendrils seemed to absorb the servitor, pulling its mass inwards with an unnatural speed. The process was sickeningly fluid, yet utterly silent. Its crude augmetics dissolved first, melting into pools of shimmering energy that were instantly drawn into the maw. Then, the organic components, the degraded flesh, the rudimentary brain matter, the few remaining internal organs, shimmered, vibrated, and then diffused, atom by atom, into glowing particles that danced along the chrysalis's internal channels. The remaining servitors followed, one by one, absorbed without resistance or a single cry. The Scutarii, hardened veterans of 1,000 wars, watched with an almost spiritual awe, their vox casters transmitting only heavy breathing and the faint, rhythmic hum that was now emanating from the chrysalis. The entire process took less than a standard hour, leaving not a trace of the servitors behind, save for a lingering, faint aroma of ozone and something indefinably organic. Then the chrysalis stirred, not violently, but with the slow, deliberate grace of a titan drawing its first breath after an eternity. A low, resonant thrum, a sound that bypassed the ear and vibrated directly within the bones, emanated from its colossal form. The intricate, crystalline filaments on its surface began to glow, first faintly, then with increasing brilliance, tracing patterns of light that shifted and reconfigured with complex, alien logic. Faint pulses of energy, like the beating of a colossal heart, rippled across its vast expanse, causing subtle distortions in the void around it. Magos Thol, witnessing this silent, majestic awakening from the command bridge of the Spiritus Omnissiah, felt a surge of exhilaration that transcended even the calculated joy of scientific discovery. His ocular implants flared, reflecting the nascent light of the awakened Leviathan. "It lives!" he boomed, his synthesized voice echoing through the silent bridge. "The Omnissiah has blessed our pilgrimage. We have awakened the sleeping god." He rechristened it then, in a moment of inspired, or perhaps profoundly deluded, zeal. "From this day forth, let it be known as the Chthonian Maw, for it has risen from the deep dark, and its hunger has been sated, bringing forth a new dawn of knowledge." The name, whispered amongst his awed subordinates, carried with it the faint, unsettling echo of primordial dread, a premonition that would soon prove tragically prescient. The awakening of the Chthonian Maw was not a gentle dawning, but a thunderous eruption into reality. The colossal vessel, once a silent derelict, now thrummed with unimaginable power, its internal energies visible as pulsating rivers of light beneath its composite hide. No longer did it drift aimlessly. Instead, it began to move with a stately, almost conscious purpose, its immense mass causing gravitational ripples that tweaked the navigation systems of the surrounding explorator fleet. Magos Thol, his every sensor attuned to the maw, reveled in its nascent movements, interpreting each subtle shift as a complex communion. He had anticipated power, but not this magnitude, this utter disdain for the laws of imperial physics. The first true demonstration of its might came swiftly. The Quetzalcoatl explorator fleet, already deep within the uncharted Cyclops reaches, found itself on the fringe of a growing orc wag. The Greenskins, a nomadic horde led by a particularly brutish war boss named Kruzga, had recently claimed a resource-rich asteroid cluster. Their crude, cobbled-together vessels, a motley collection of hulks, ram ships, and rocks, numbered in the hundreds, bristling with salvaged cannon and crude, overcharged plasma weaponry. An engagement with such a force would have been a prolonged, costly affair, even for a well-equipped Mechanicus fleet. Arch-Domina Zenith had already begun calculating optimal engagement vectors and defensive formations, bracing for the inevitable attrition. But Thol had other ideas. "Engage not, Arch-Domina." His voice resonated across the Spiritus Omnissiah's bridge, overriding Zenith's tactical projections. "The Maw shall demonstrate its divine purpose. Guide it towards the orc fleet. Not too close. Let it gauge its prey." Zenith's ocular implants narrowed, a flicker of concern betraying her usual stoicism. "Magos Prime, the Maw is an unknown. To commit it to battle against a wag of this scale, it is an untest." "Silence, Arch-Domina," Thol snapped, his synthetic voice rising to an imperious pitch. "Doubt is heresy. The Maw is the Omnissiah's gift, and it shall prove its worth. Obey." Reluctantly, Zenith complied. The explorator fleet held back, their weapon systems charged but silent, as the Chthonian Maw, moving with an eerie, almost organic grace, advanced towards the incoming orc armada. Kruzga's greenskins, oblivious to the alien nature of their approaching adversary, hailed it as a particularly large, unusually shiny, humy hulk, eager for a good fight and the chance to loot its considerable bulk. The Maw, however, offered no conventional broadsides, no lances of light, no volleys of torpedoes. As it closed to optimal range, its surface began to ripple. From its intricate, crystalline organic carapace, dozens of immense, spear-like projections, previously indistinguishable from its natural geometry, extended outwards. These were not solid weapons, but constructs of pure energy, shimmering with an incandescent violet light. Each spear pulsed with an incredible contained power, humming at a frequency that distorted local space. Then, with a silent, terrifying precision, the Maw unleashed its wrath. The energy spears did not fire bolts or beams. They reached. Like phantom tendrils of pure force, they lanced out across the void, impacting multiple orc vessels simultaneously. There was no explosion, no flash of detonation. Instead, where the energy spears touched, the orc ships simply dissolved. Not shattered, not vaporized, but unraveled at a molecular level. Hulls, engines, weapons, even the teeming orc crew within, all disintegrated into nothingness, leaving behind only swirling clouds of ionized particles that rapidly dispersed. One moment, a gargantuan orc battlecruiser, bristling with guns and screaming greenskins, was bearing down on the maw. The next, it was gone, leaving only a dark void where it had been. The process was sickeningly fast, brutally efficient, and utterly horrifying. The remaining orc vessels, their crude minds barely capable of processing such an impossible display, faltered. Kruzga's wag, accustomed to crude, physical violence, had never encountered an enemy that simply erased them from existence. Confusion gave way to terror. The orc fleet broke, scattering into the void like frightened vermin, their energy collapsing into a chaotic rout. The maw did not pursue. Its energy spears retracted, disappearing back into its surface as if they had never existed. It simply hovered, radiating a silent, immense satisfaction. The explorator fleet, witnessing this unprecedented display of power, was awestruck. Cheers, rare amongst the stoic tech priests, erupted across the Spiritus Omnissiah's bridge. Zenith, though still deeply unsettled, had to concede the maw's terrifying effectiveness. Such efficiency, such destructive purity, she murmured, her voice laced with a mixture of reverence and primal fear. Thol's satisfaction was boundless. A miracle, Archdomina, the very will of the Omnissiah manifest. Its technologies, its esoteric energies, are beyond even the ancient STC records. This is true progress. The maw's capabilities, however, extended far beyond simple destruction. As the explorator fleet continued its journey, charting treacherous warp lanes and negotiating stellar anomalies, the Chthonian maw proved an invaluable asset. Where warp storms raged, threatening to tear apart even the heavily shielded Mechanicus vessels, the maw simply navigated. It didn't bend the storm to its will, nor did it brute force its way through. Instead, its hull would subtly ripple, its crystalline structures vibrating at unknown frequencies, and it would glide through the chaotic energies as if they were placid waters, emerging unscathed on the other side. Its ability to manipulate local reality to phase slightly out of sync with the most destructive eddies of the immaterium, rendered the most perilous warp routes contemptuously easy. Furthermore, its unique biomechanical nature began to manifest in other ways. During a resupply operation, a critical atmospheric processor on the Pax Technologicus suffered catastrophic failure, threatening to vent the ship's vital gases into the void. Before repair teams could even be dispatched, the Chthonian maw, orbiting several kilometers away, responded. From its surface, a single vast organic metallic tendril, hundreds of meters long, extended towards the crippled cruiser. It didn't dock or interface in any conventional way. Instead, it simply touched the failing processor. Instantly, the damaged machinery ceased its critical cascade. Within minutes, the processor began to hum back to life, its broken components seemingly reknitted. Its failed power conduits re-established not with replacement parts, but with new, glistening, organic metallic growths that were seamlessly integrated into the original structure. The repaired unit was not merely fixed. It was enhanced. Its output boosted by nearly 30%. Its efficiency unparalleled. The tech priests who inspected the miraculously restored processor were aghast, then ecstatic. The new components were biological in origin, yet possessed the strength and conductivity of the finest electro-gilded adamantium. It's a living STC, one engine seer gasped, his voice trembling with a mixture of awe and terror. It does not merely construct, it grows perfect machinery from biological matter. News of these miracles spread like wildfire through the fleet. The Chthonian maw was no longer merely a Xenos artifact. It was an active participant, a living, breathing god machine. Magos Thol, increasingly enthralled by its power, became its primary interpreter, its most fervent evangelist. He proclaimed its existence as a sign of the Omnissiah's favor, a revelation that would usher in a new age of technological enlightenment. The fleet, once apprehensive, now hailed the maw as their salvation, their invincible shield, their harbinger of a glorious future. The dread, the unease, the subtle whisper of heresy, all were drowned out by the thunderous roar of unparalleled might and the seductive promise of ultimate power. The cost, the small, unsettling price of a few degraded servitors, seemed a trifling sum for such boundless potential. For now, the whispers began subtly, barely audible beneath the triumphant hymns of praise sung to the Chthonian maw. They spoke of the maw's continued requests, which, after the initial success with the degraded servitors, quickly escalated in frequency and scale. Magos Thol, his mind increasingly entwined with the enigmatic intelligence of the maw, dismissed these whispers as the uninformed anxieties of the unenlightened. He saw only patterns, only data, only the logical progression of an unparalleled technological integration. Following the obliteration of the orc, Wag, and the maw's miraculous repairs, Thole became convinced that the maw required increasingly potent biological inputs for its optimal function and growth. He theorized that the previous servitor units, being heavily augmented and mentally lobotomized, provided only a fraction of the necessary biocoherence the maw truly sought. Its energy signature, he argued, was growing more complex, requiring a richer, more vibrant organic matrix to fully awaken its deeper systems. The first escalation came with the requisition of cultists from the lower decks of the fleet. These were the hangers-on, the undesirables, the zealots of obscure, half-heretical techno-cults that inevitably festered in the underbelly of any large imperial fleet. Their lives were cheap, their devotion to the machine god often unorthodox, and their absence would scarcely be noted beyond their immediate, equally disenfranchised brethren. Thole presented the demand as a divine purification, a sanctified offering to the nascent machine god. A transport shuttle, not the sterile clinical vessel used for the servitors, but a repurposed cargo lighter, carried 100 bound and gagged cultists towards the maw. Their cries, muffled by gags and the drone of the engines, were largely ignored by the Skitarii guards, who had been assured of the sacred nature of the act. As before, the maw's primary bio-interface node dilated. Tendrils extended, and the cultists were absorbed, not gently, but with a terrifying, purposeful hunger. This time, however, the process was quicker, almost eager. The maw's surface glowed with a brighter, more vibrant intensity. Its resonant hum deepened, now carrying a faint, guttural undercurrent. The success of this offering emboldened Thole. He claimed that the maw had demonstrated an increase in its ability to navigate subtle reality distortions, granting the fleet even greater immunity to minor warp anomalies. The subtle disquiet among the fleet's tech priests was easily rationalized away. These were cultists, after all, already straying from the Emperor's light, their lives effectively forfeited. Their sacrifice was a path to greater understanding. Then came the next demand: injured Skitarii. Not the dead, not those beyond hope, but those with grievous wounds, those who lingered on the cusp of demise in the Medici bays. Thole argued that these individuals, still infused with the purity of battle servitude, their machine spirits intact, but their biological forms failing, offered a unique blend of organic and mechanical essence. He presented it as an act of merciful transference, a means for their suffering to find higher purpose within the Maw's divine embrace. Arch-Domina Zenith, pragmatic and fiercely loyal to the established tenets of the Mechanicus, voiced her strongest objections yet. Magos Prime, this is unconscionable. To offer the Emperor's soldiers, even those gravely wounded, to a Xenos construct? Their spirits belong to the Omnicia, to be repaired or laid to rest, not consumed. Thol's response was cold, his ocular implants burning with fanaticism. Their flesh is failing, Zenith. The Maw offers them a form of apotheosis, a path to transcend their pain and become part of a greater, more advanced machine spirit. Do you deny them this sacred rebirth? Do you question the will of the Omnissiah manifest in this divine engine? His pronouncements were backed by a coterie of increasingly fervent junior Magos who had fallen under the Maw's subtle influence, their augmetics subtly repatterned with the Maw's organic metallic aesthetics. Outnumbered and outmaneuvered, Zenith was forced to concede, but a cold knot of dread began to form in her augmented heart. The Skitarii, those who could still articulate, expressed a mix of fear and resigned compliance. Some, indoctrinated beyond reason, even saw it as an honor. Their shattered bodies, still clinging to life, were delivered to the Maw. The absorption process was again faster, more ravenous. A low, guttural moan, almost a purr, emanated from the Maw's depths, echoing unsettlingly through the void. The Maw's intricate surface pulsed with an even brighter, more aggressive light. The cost for this sacrifice, Thol declared, was a dramatic increase in the Maw's navigational precision through the most treacherous nebulae, allowing the fleet to chart new, unexplored pathways that had once been considered impassable. He presented it as undeniable proof of the Maw's benevolent power, blinding many to the deepening horror of its methods. Then came the demand that shattered all illusions of ethical justification for those not fully enthralled. The Maw requested healthy adepts, not servitors, not cultists, not the dying, but fully functioning tech priests, engine seers, and lex mechanics, those vital to the fleet's operation. Its communications, once abstract energy pulses, were now interpreted by Thol as increasingly coherent psychic whispers, resonating directly within his cranial augmetics. The Maw, he claimed, sought to understand the full spectrum of imperial, biological, and mechanical interfacing, requiring unblemished samples for optimal integration. Panic, barely contained, began to spread through the explorator fleet. Even the most zealous followers of Thol hesitated. To sacrifice healthy, functional members of the Adeptus Mechanicus, the very embodiment of the machine God's chosen, was anathema. This was not a sacrifice. It was a consumption. Arch-Domina Zenith confronted Thol openly on the Spiritus Omnissiah's bridge, her voice a low, furious hiss. Magos Prime, this is beyond heresy. This is an abomination. The Maw is not a divine engine. It is a predator. It feeds on us, Thol. It feeds. Thol, his face now less machine, more a grotesque fusion of organic and metallic structures that writhed faintly beneath his skin, turned to her, his ocular implants glowing with an unnatural, sickly green light. You fail to comprehend, Zenith. The Maw transcends your limited understanding. It is perfecting us. It offers us ultimate unity, ultimate knowledge. These adepts will not die. They will become part of its divine essence. They will be reborn into a higher state of being, integrated into a galactic consciousness beyond mortal comprehension. His words, once resonating with the cold logic of the Mechanicus, now carried a distinct, chillingly alien inflection. The Archdomina's attempts to resist were futile. Thol, backed by a growing cadre of fanatical Magos and loyal Skitarii, had already issued the command. 100 healthy adepts, chosen through a warped process of optimal genetic and augmetic compatibility by Thol's Maw-influenced cogitators, were rounded up. Their pleas, their desperate attempts to reason, their cries to the Omnissiah for deliverance, were met with bold, unyielding force. They were forced into the Maw, their pristine robes and gleaming augmetics absorbed into the swirling vortex of light and flesh-dissolving tendrils. This time, a faint, high-pitched scream, inhuman and terrifying, was heard by some before it was abruptly silenced. The Chthonian Maw, after this profound offering, resonated with a terrible, vibrant power. Its surface pulsed with an almost blinding light, and the deep, guttural hum emanating from its core vibrated through the very depths of the Spiritus Omnissiah. It manifested new capabilities, projecting fields of localized causality distortion that allowed its accompanying vessels to appear and disappear from enemy sensors at will, making the entire fleet virtually undetectable. Its esoteric energies intensified, subtly influencing the minds of those within its proximity, eroding their will, bending them to its alien needs. Fear and unease, once whispers, now solidified into a palpable dread. Those who resisted its influence felt a creeping, mental violation, a subtle invasion of their augmetics. The Maw's insatiable hunger was undeniable. Its promises of power, a seductive lie, slowly revealed with each escalation of its horrific demands. But by now, Thol and his growing number of zealots were too deeply entrenched, too thoroughly enthralled by the Maw's alien will, to turn back. The price of victory, once abstract, was now counted in the lives of the faithful, and it was growing ever higher, ever more horrifying. The Chthonian. Maw's burgeoning power, however, was not destined to remain an internal secret of the Puituntund explorator fleet. Its unique, hunger-driven energies, especially those unleashed during the absorption of living biomass, were not contained by the void. They rippled through the Empyrean like a silent, psychic scream, attracting attention from entities that thrived on such chaotic emanations. Far beyond the immediate reach of the Cyclops, Reach's expedition, nestled within the shifting, malevolent gas clouds of the Weeping Nebula, lurked a minor chaos cult fleet, the Children of the Black Sun. This particular cult, dedicated to a nameless, amorphous entity of cosmic dread, consisted of 12 repurposed Imperial vessels, a heavy cruiser, several frigates, and a host of smaller, scavenged gunships, each adorned with crude, obsidian black symbols and defiled iconography. Their crews were a mixture of mutants, warp-touched fanatics, and despairing lost souls, their minds twisted by the maddening whispers of the void. They were a festering sore upon the galactic fringe, a predatory pack preying on isolated merchant vessels and ill-prepared Imperial patrols. Their leader, a bloated, demonically blessed demagogue known as Lord Malachor, had felt the peculiar psychic emanations from the Maw. Unlike the crude, emotional outbursts of conventional psychic phenomena, these were cold, calculated waves of ravenous biological hunger, laced with a strange, machine-like purity. Malachor, a sorcerer of no small power, initially dismissed it as a minor warp entity, perhaps a nascent demon of Nurgle manifesting in a new form. But the sheer scale of the energy signature, the almost intelligent pattern of its predatory consumption, intrigued him. He saw it as a potential tool, a new avenue for his dark rituals, a monstrous engine to bring ultimate ruin to the hated Imperium. "A feast approaches, my children," Malachor bellowed from the blasphemous throne of his flagship. The shadows caress, its interior a grotesque parody of imperial design, festooned with chains, skulls, and pulsating organic growths. A new god thing awakens in the void. We shall greet it with offerings of blood and suffering, and bind its power to our will. driven by avarice and a twisted curiosity, the children of the Black Sun, their vessels cloaked by the shifting mists of the Weeping Nebula, began their slow, silent advance towards the Chthonian Maw. They intended to ambush the accompanying Mechanicus fleet, board the strange, silent behemoth, and subjugate its power through ritual and dark sorcery. The Maw, however, was not silent to all frequencies. Its nascent, alien sentience, though still inscrutable to Magos Thol, possessed a sensory apparatus far beyond imperial understanding. It registered the approaching Chaos fleet not as a strategic threat, but as a vast, succulent collection of biomass, an incoming, unbidden offering. Its systems, now fully integrating the consciousnesses of the absorbed adepts, cultists, and Skitarii, perceived the warp-tainted vessels as nodes of corrupted yet potent biological energy. As the Shadows' Caress and its escort fleet emerged from the nebula, its defiled prows aimed squarely at the Chthonian Maw, the Mechanicus explorator fleet bracing for an anticipated engagement. The Maw reacted with brutal, casual indifference. It did not deploy its energy spears this time. Instead, its vast, crystalline organic surface began to ripple with an intensified, almost blinding, green light. From its depths, not weapons, but vast, undulating fields of antimatter discharge began to coalesce. These were not projectiles. They were localized, self-sustaining pockets of pure annihilation, controlled by the Maw with a terrifying precision. The Chaos vessels, still charging their main batteries, were enveloped by these fields without warning. The Shadows' Caress, a ship that had weathered countless battles and been blessed by the foulest powers of the warp, was consumed first. The antimatter field shimmered around its hull, and then, with an impossible silence, the heavy cruiser imploded, not in a fiery explosion, but in a horrific, inward collapse. Hull plates, internal bulkheads, demonically mutated crew, all were crushed into a singularity of non-existence, leaving behind only a momentary, residual void fracture. The residual energies, however, were not entirely lost. Like a ghost, a faint, almost imperceptible psychic residue pulsed outwards from where the Shadows' Caress had been, quickly drawn into the Maw. Lord Malachor, consumed by his own antimatter field, didn't even have time to scream a final curse. His twisted consciousness, brimming with dark sorcery and foul knowledge, was instantly extinguished, its essence dissolved and absorbed by the Maw, adding its peculiar, warp-tainted flavor to the Maw's growing internal matrix. The rest of the children of the Black Sun fleet met similar fates. Frigates were swallowed whole. Gunships simply winked out of existence, all compressed into fleeting points of non-being. There was no resistance, no struggle, merely utter, instant annihilation. Within minutes, the entire Chaos Fleet, a menace to the sector for decades, was gone. Not even debris remained. Only the echoing silence and the faint, unsettling hum of the Chthonian maw, which now glowed with an even fiercer, more vibrant intensity. Magos Thol, witnessing this casual, brutal obliteration from the bridge of the Spiritus Omnicia, felt a fresh wave of awe and chilling respect. "It cleansed them," he whispered, his voice a low thrum of revelation. "It cleansed the taint of chaos from the void, purging them utterly. It is not merely an engine of destruction, but an arbiter of purity." Yet, even as Thol exalted, a profound shift occurred within the maw. The energies it had absorbed from the Chaos Fleet, particularly the unique psychic residue of Lord Malachor, proved to be a catalyst. The maw's own internal consciousness, hitherto a subtle presence, stirred more profoundly. Its requests for biological input, once couched in arcane scientific terms, now carried a faint, almost discernible undertone of desire. Its subtle influence over Thol and his immediate followers deepened, becoming more direct, more compelling. Unbeknownst to the Mechanicus, the unique, hunger-driven energies the maw generated, coupled with the sudden annihilation of a warp-attuned Chaos Fleet, had created a catastrophic disturbance in the fabric of the Empyrean. It was a beacon, a siren song of colossal consumption, broadcast across untold light years. The sudden vacuum left by the collapse of Malachor's soul, compressed and absorbed by the maw, created a psychic echo, a void that resonated with ancient, slumbering entities. Far, far beyond the confines of the Cyclops reaches, in the deepest, most primordial darkness of the galactic void, something stirred, something ancient beyond reckoning, something that had haunted the nightmares of nascent civilizations, something that consumed entire stellar empires and left only silent, lifeless rocks in its wake. The psychic ripple from the maw's feed was a scent on the wind, a promise of untold biomass. It was the faint, awakening shudder of a creature that had been drawn across intergalactic voids by the promise of ultimate consumption, the Tyranids. The destruction of the children of the Black Sun, a minor act of brutal efficiency, had inadvertently attracted something far more ancient, far more predatory, and infinitely more terrifying. The maw had shown its might, but in doing so, it had also broadcast its presence to a foe that would soon prove to be its ultimate, horrific match. The rapid escalation of the Chthonian Maw's demands, coupled with Magos Thol's increasingly unhinged interpretations of its will, pushed the Quetan explorator fleet to its breaking point. The veneer of scientific curiosity and mechanical pragmatism began to crack, revealing the gnawing horror beneath. The forced absorption of healthy adepts, revered members of the Mechanicus, was a betrayal of every sacred tenet, a blasphemy that could no longer be ignored by those still clinging to the orthodoxy of the machine god. Arch-Domina Zenith, Thol's pragmatic and fiercely traditional second-in-command, was the focal point of this brewing rebellion. Her augmetic systems, though not immune to the Maw's subtle psychic influence, possessed a rare resilience born of unwavering faith and a profound understanding of Mechanicus dogma. She saw the Maw not as a divine engine, but as a parasitic abomination, a xenos construct that devoured not only flesh, but also the very soul of the expedition. "He is corrupted," Zenith declared in the hushed confines of a hidden antechamber aboard the Spiritus Omnissiah, her voice a low, furious whisper amplified by her vox-caster. She addressed a small, clandestine gathering of loyalist engine-seers, janitors, and even a few battle-hardened Scitarii Alpha Primus who remained skeptical of Thol's descent into fanaticism. His mind is enslaved, his logic subverted. The Maw is not an STC. It is a bio-predator feeding upon our very essence. An engine seer designated Kalis, his cranial augmetics glowing nervously, dared to speak. But Arch-Domina, its power, the annihilation of the Orc Wow, the cleansing of the Chaos cult, it possesses capabilities unparalleled, even by ancient human-era constructs. "And at what cost, Kalis?" Zenith countered, her voice laced with chilling certainty. "The lives of our brethren, consumed without trace? The whispers in our data streams, subtly altering our protocols? Do you not feel its insidious influence? It preys on ambition, on the thirst for knowledge, twisting them into a hunger for biological offerings." She displayed a set of encrypted data slates, salvaged from the personal logs of an absorbed Lex mechanic. The entries documented the Maw's psychic incursions, its direct mental commands bypassing conventional interfaces, compelling loyalty through insidious suggestion. The evidence was damning. The Maw was not merely requesting sacrifices, it was demanding them, and subtly altering the perceptions of those in authority to rationalize these horrors. Its influence was a poison, slowly corrupting the chain of command, isolating dissenting voices. Thol, once a paragon of mechanicus intellect, was now a grotesque puppet, his flesh and augmetics subtly repatterned, his every pronouncement echoing the alien will of the Chthonian maw. Zenith presented her chilling conclusion. This is a direct affront to the Omnissiah. The maw is not merely a Xenos artifact. It is an active blasphemy against the purity of the machine. It must be destroyed before it consumes us all, before its influence spreads to the wider Imperium. Her words sparked fierce debate. Many of the Loyalists were horrified by the implications, but also terrified by the Maw's demonstrated power. To attack it was suicide. To openly defy Thol, their explorator prime, was an act of insubordination bordering on heresy, punishable by immediate lobotomization and servitorization. However, the growing horror outweighed the fear. The memory of the healthy adepts being fed to the maw, their screams replaced by the sickening hum of absorption, still haunted their data ghosts. The erosion of their own wills, the subtle, invasive feeling in their augmetics, was undeniable. "We cannot allow this to continue," declared a grizzled Skitarii Alpha Primus, his voice a low, crackling static through his vox grill. "Our oaths are to the Omnissiah and to the Emperor. This thing is neither. It is an enemy." The schism solidified. Zenith and her loyalists, numbering perhaps a fifth of the fleet's total personnel, pledged themselves to the Maw's destruction. Their plan was desperate, bordering on suicidal. They would gather all available void charges, experimental plasma warheads, and even self-destruct protocols from their own vessels, and launch a direct assault on the Maw's presumed core, hoping to overload its systems. They would have to bypass Thol's fanatical adherents, avoid detection by the Maw's increasingly sophisticated sensorium, and likely fight their way through its organic metallic defenses. But before they could fully enact their desperate strategy, Thol, guided by the Maw's preternatural awareness, struck first. His inner circle, now grotesquely altered with biomechanical fusions that writhed beneath their robes, identified the key dissenters. Arch-Domina Zenith and her loyalists were branded as heretics. Their attempts to resist the divine engine condemned as blasphemy against progress. "They are blind to enlightenment," Thol's voice boomed across the fleet's noospheric network, his words laced with the Maw's own alien inflection. "They resist the next stage of our evolution. They shall be purged, or they shall be offered to the Maw for reintegration into a purer form." The internal strife erupted into open conflict. Skitarii legions, once united, turned on each other, a horrifying civil war igniting within the heart of the explorator fleet. Small-scale void battles flared between loyalist frigates and Thol's enforcers. On the decks of the Spiritus Omnissiah and other larger vessels, tech priests fought tech priests, their augmetic limbs clashing, their data ports exchanging malicious viruses, their plasma cutters carving through ceramite and flesh alike. The hallowed halls of the Mechanicus, once sanctums of order and logic, became battlegrounds of grim, mechanical fratricide. Zenith, leading a desperate fighting retreat, managed to secure several loyalist vessels, a handful of destroyers and transport ships, along with a contingent of her most steadfast Skitarii and Tech Guard. They fought their way through blockade runners and fanatical resistance, sustaining heavy losses. She witnessed Engenseers, once her colleagues, now merged with grotesque organic metallic growths, their eyes glowing with the same sickly green light as Thol's, attempt to sabotage her ships. As her battered loyalist fleet broke free from the core of Thol's forces, fleeing into the deeper void, Zenith looked back at the Spiritus Omnissiah. Its vast form was now subtly warped, its original lines obscured by pulsating organic extrusions that mimicked the Maw's own bizarre geometry. Thol's fleet, now numbering only 2/3 of its original strength, gathered around the Chthonian Maw like a protective flock. Their devotion absolute, their transformation seemingly complete. "He has excommunicated us," Zenith whispered, her voice tinged with immense grief. "He has condemned us to the void, but we are the true faithful, and we shall return for the Omnissiah, for humanity." She knew their chances were slim. Thol, guided by the Maw's preternatural awareness, would hunt them, but a desperate defiance hardened her resolve. The Maw had claimed her brethren, corrupted her leader, and shattered her fleet. Now it had made a mortal enemy of her, and she would not rest until its monstrous existence was extinguished, no matter the cost. The schism was complete, the battle lines drawn not between man and Xenos, but within the very heart of the Adeptus Mechanicus itself. The civil strife within the Quattutin explorator fleet was a costly, brutal affair, but it was overshadowed by an even greater, more horrifying victory for the Chthonian Maw. After purging the heretics under Archdomina Zenith, Magos Thol, now indistinguishable from the Maw's own bizarre biomechanical aesthetic, received its next and most ambitious demand. The Maw required a vast, sustained infusion of biomass, not merely to satiate a fleeting hunger, but to activate its deeper, more profound systems. Systems Thol now referred to as the maturation protocols. Coincidentally, or perhaps by the Maw's subtle, insidious guidance, the explorator fleet had entered the fringes of the Xylos system. Xylos 3, a once verdant agri-world, now reduced to a blasted wasteland, had recently become the site of a devastating Necron awakening. A tomb, world of considerable size, had stirred beneath its surface, unleashing phalanxes of gleaming metallic warriors and terrifying constructs upon the unprepared Imperial colonists. An Imperial Guard crusade, numbering several regiments, and supported by a token Adeptus Astartes contingent from a minor chapter, had been fighting a losing war of attrition against the implacable Necron legions for months. Their distress calls, once desperate, had dwindled to sporadic, grim reports of constant retreat and overwhelming losses. Thol, sensing the Maw's interest, intercepted these distress calls. His interpretation of the Maw's psychic whispers was immediate and chilling. The Omnissiah presents us with a proving ground, he declared to his inner circle, his voice now a chorus of human and alien tones. A vast source of biological purity, locked in combat with soulless automata. The Maw shall cleanse Xylos 3 and be elevated to its true galactic purpose. The remaining 40 explorator fleet, now fully under Thol's zealous command and the Maw's pervasive influence, descended upon Xylos 3 like a flock of predatory birds. The Imperial Guard forces, battered and near breaking point, initially hailed their arrival as a divine intervention. Their commander, a grizzled general named Casimir, whose regiments had been ground down to a fraction of their strength, was overjoyed by the appearance of the colossal Chthonian Maw, mistaking it for a new, experimental class of Imperial battle station. Thol, presenting himself as the savior of Xylos, quickly assumed command of the Imperial forces. He established direct, noospheric links with General Casimir and the remaining Imperial Guard command structure, his modified augmetics ensuring immediate compliance. The Skitarii legions, their loyalty to Thol absolute, were deployed first, launching devastating orbital bombardments and ground assaults that caught the Necrons off guard. Then, the Chthonian Maw entered the fray. It positioned itself in high orbit, directly above the most heavily infested Necron strongholds. From its colossal form, not energy spears, but dozens of vast, segmented, organic metallic constructs, like immense, multi-jointed biotitans, descended through the atmosphere. These constructs, previously latent within the Maw's internal structure, now detached and plummeted to the surface, landing with seismic force. These bio-titans were unlike anything the Imperium had ever encountered. They were living machines, their carapaces gleaming with the Maw's characteristic crystalline organic fusion, their limbs terminating in multi-bladed appendages that writhed and pulsed with contained energy. They moved with an impossible speed and agility, tearing through Necron phalanxes like a hot knife through butter. Their internal systems, powered by the biomass absorbed by the Maw, pulsed with a violent, exotic energy that disrupted Necron reanimation protocols, turning their metallic forms into inert slag. The Necrons, for the first time in centuries, faltered. Their rigid battle lines broke as these new, impossible Xenos constructs tore through their ranks, their ancient weaponry proving ineffective against the Maw's living technology. The Imperial Guard, witnessing this terrifying yet effective new ally, renewed their attacks with desperate ferocity, surging forward alongside the Maw's bio-titans. The victory was swift, brutal, and utterly comprehensive. Necron legions were annihilated, their Tomb World's central command node obliterated by a focused blast from one of the Maw's orbital systems. Xylos III was purged of the Necron threat. The Imperial Guard, though heavily depleted, had been saved. But the cost, the true cost, was yet to be revealed. As the Necron threat waned, and the Maw's bio-titans began their methodical sweep of the planet, Magos Thol initiated the Grand Harvest. The Maw, its systems now fully engaged in the maturation protocols, required its payment. Under Thol's direct psychic command, the Skitarii legions, augmented with new, Maw-derived organic metallic upgrades, turned on the surviving Imperial Guard. Simultaneously, orbital transports from Thol's fleet, supposedly delivering resupply and evacuation, began to land, not to uplift the weary soldiers, but to herd them into vast, pulsating bio-containment units. General Casimir, witnessing the betrayal, rallied his remaining forces for a desperate last stand. "Heresy, treachery," he bellowed into his voxcaster, his voice cracking with horror. "The Mechanicus has betrayed us. They are sacrificing us to this Xenos monster." The cries of the Imperial Guard echoed across the devastated plains of Xylos III, quickly drowned out by the thunder of Maw constructs and the merciless fire of the Skitarii. Entire battalions, exhausted and disoriented, were systematically rounded up, their weapons useless against the advanced biotechnology and their own erstwhile allies. They were loaded into the transport ships, not for evacuation, but for delivery to the waiting Maw in orbit. The climax of this horror was the Maw's final act of absorption. Orbiting high above Xylos 3, its bio-interface nodes dilated to an immense size. Ship after ship, laden with screaming Imperial Guard, cultists, and even the last remaining civilian populations from the few surviving agridomes, docked with the Maw. The process was swift, merciless. Millions of lives, raw biomass, fed directly into the Maw's ever-hungry internal systems. Their screams, their last breaths, their very life force were consumed, transformed into a raw, exquisite energy that fueled the Maw's maturation. As the last transport delivered its ghastly cargo, the Chthonian Maw underwent a profound metamorphosis. Its colossal form expanded, shimmering with an incandescent, multi-hued light. New, organic metallic protuberances erupted from its surface, resembling nascent, colossal limbs, or perhaps the unfolding petals of a monstrous flower. Its internal hum deepened, resonating throughout the entire system, a sound of immense power and profound alien satisfaction. Thol, watching from the spiritus omnissiah, his consciousness deeply fused with the Maw's, felt an ecstasy that bordered on spiritual enlightenment. "It is magnificent," he declared, his voice a choir of alien delight. "The great work is complete. The Maw has matured. We have achieved transcendence." But for the scattered, terrified remnants of the Imperial Guard, for the few who witnessed the wholesale slaughter and consumption, Xylos 3 became a pyre of unimaginable horror, a monument to the ultimate price of a Pyrrhic victory. The Necrons were gone, but the Imperial forces, too, had been utterly annihilated, not by the enemy, but by their saviors. The Chthonian Maw had emerged victorious, more powerful, more terrifying than ever, having consumed an entire world's worth of life to achieve its next stage of evolution. Its hunger was now satisfied, but only for a brief, terrifying moment. While Magos Thol and his fanatical adherents celebrated the maturation of the Chthonian Maw and the horrific victory on Xylos 3, Archdomina Zenith and her beleaguered loyalists, fleeing through the fringes of the Cyclops reaches, were desperately attempting to understand the monstrous entity that had consumed their fleet and their leader. Their small flotilla, battered and leaking, was far too weak to confront the Maw directly. Their only hope lay in understanding its nature, in finding a weakness or an origin that could be exploited. Among Zenith's loyalists was a renegade datasmith, a brilliant but eccentric adept named Lex Prime 7 Phi. Lex Prime 7 Phi had once been part of Thol's personal research team. tasked with attempting to interface with the Maw's ancient data slates. Before the schism and his narrow escape, he had managed to siphon off fragments of encrypted data directly from the Maw's lower-level systems during one of Thol's earlier, less invasive interfacing attempts. He carried these fragments, highly corrupted and fragmented, within his personal cogitator implants, a dangerous act of technological espionage. Deep within the confines of Zenith's flagship, the heavily damaged destroyer. Oath of Iron, Lex Prime 7 Phi toiled tirelessly. His workspace was a cocoon of flickering holographic displays and humming data assemblers, the air thick with ozone. He bypassed countless Xenos encryption protocols, filtered through aeons of decaying data, and battled against the Maw's lingering psychic interference embedded within the data fragments themselves. The information was abstract, filled with non-linear logic and symbolic representations that defied imperial understanding. It was like trying to read a universal language through a broken lens, with every word warped and distorted. Days bled into weeks. The fragmented data began to coalesce into a horrific, incomplete picture. It wasn't a narrative in the conventional sense, but a series of chilling, conceptual diagrams, biological schematics, and ancient star chart projections. Lex Prime 7 Phi, his synthetic organs screaming under the strain, finally decoded enough to present a chilling summary to Arch Domina Zenith. Arch Domina, he began, his voice a strained, crackling whisper over the private Vox link. The Maw. It is not merely a starship, nor even a weapon in the traditional sense. It is a progenitor, a seed machine. Zenith, her posture rigid even in the cramped, data-saturated chamber, urged him to elaborate. Explain, Lex Prime. What do these fragments reveal of its origins? It is a construct of an extinct Xenos civilization, 7 Phi continued, his ocular implants displaying swirling, alien diagrams. Their name is lost to time. Their empire crumbled to dust countless millennia ago. But their science, it transcended even the wildest dreams of the dark age of technology. They did not build ships. They grew them. They did not conquer worlds. They remade them. The data smith paused, his metallic fingers twitching. These fragments suggest the Maw, and others like it, were deployed as terraforming engines, not to cultivate life, but to absorb it, to consume entire planetary biospheres, the flora, the fauna, even complex sentient life, and process it into a refined, homogeneous, biological substrate. This substrate would then be used to construct vast, galactic-scale structures, entirely organic mechanical in nature, for their unknown masters. A chill, colder than the vacuum of space, permeated the chamber. Zenith felt a deep, primal revulsion. So, it is a harvester, a celestial predator, designed to devour and reshape life? More than that, Archdomina, 7-Phi responded, his voice laden with dread. These schematics, they imply that the Maw doesn't just consume. It learns. It integrates the genetic and neural data of its victims. The servitors, the cultists, the Skitarii, the adepts, the Imperial Guard, even the Chaos Lord. Their biological and neurological essence, their knowledge, their memories, all are broken down and repatterned within its core, adding to its computational and adaptive capabilities. The implication was horrifying. The Maw wasn't just fueling itself. It was evolving, becoming more intelligent, more cunning, more powerful, with every life it consumed. It was a living, growing superorganism, designed by an ancient Xenos race to be the ultimate instrument of planetary re-engineering through total biological absorption. The maturation protocols on Xylos 3 were not about activating dormant systems, but about reaching a critical mass of biological material and integrated intelligence to begin its true, terrifying purpose. The fragments also hinted at a purpose beyond mere consumption. The substrate it produced was not waste, but a building block. The ancient civilization that created the Maw had used it to grow incomprehensibly vast, sentient, biomechanical structures that spanned star systems, constructs that could reshape the very fabric of reality. The chrysalis, now the Chthonian Maw, was merely one of these harvester progenitors, a component in a cosmic-scale architectural project. What of its connection to our own machine spirits, to the Omnissiah? Zenith asked, a desperate hope in her voice that this horror might somehow be tied to a misunderstanding, to a corruption of something inherently noble. Lex Prime 7-Phi shook his head, his augmetics whirring mournfully. There is no connection, Archdomina. The Maw is a perversion of life and a mockery of the machine. Its machine spirit is the collective, repatterned consciousness of all it has consumed, fused with its original alien programming. It is a hunger-given form, an ambition made manifest. It simply mimics what it perceives as divine or powerful to achieve its goals, feeding on our faith, our fear, our devotion to secure its next meal. The revelation was a crushing blow. The Maw was not a lost STC, not a divine engine, not even a true machine god. It was an insatiable, alien consumer, a horror from the deep past designed to cannibalize entire worlds. Thol, the Explorator Prime, had not merely been corrupted. He had become the willing instrument of a cosmic abomination, facilitating its grotesque maturation. Zenith clenched her metallic fist, a surge of cold fury replacing the earlier dread. Then it is as I suspected, a pure Xenos threat, more insidious and vile than any orc or necron. It offers power, but only to enslave and consume. Its designers are long dead, but their vile legacy lives on through this progenitor. She looked out into the void, her gaze fixed on the distant, shimmering light that was the Chthonian Maw. It was no longer a mystery to be solved, but an existential threat to be purged. The fragmented data from Lex Prime 7 Phi had stripped away all pretenses of wonder, leaving only the grim reality of a galaxy-eating monster. The true nature of the Maw was not merely terrifying. It was a profound violation of life itself, a chilling testament to the horrors hidden in the universe's most ancient, forgotten corners. The only path forward was absolute destruction, no matter the cost. The true nature of the Chthonian Maw, revealed in horrifying fragments by Lex Prime 7 Phi, cemented Archdomina Zenith's resolve. The Maw was not a divine engine, nor even a true machine god. It was a cosmic predator, an architect of consumption. Yet, even in the depths of their despair, a flicker of an unexpected opportunity presented itself, a desperate glimmer of hope in the overwhelming darkness. During the decoding of the Maw's ancient data slates, Lex Prime 7 Phi stumbled upon a unique energy signature, subtly embedded within the Maw's deeper diagnostic protocols. This signature was distinct from the Maw's own bioelectric pulses, or its esoteric weapon energies. It was faint, ancient, and radiated from what appeared to be a concealed chamber within the Maw's colossal superstructure, a chamber marked in the alien schematics as core conduit, reliquary system. Archdomina, Lex Prime 7 Phi reported, his voice filled with a tremor of awe. The Maw possesses an internal relic, a power source, or perhaps a control node that predates even its own construction. The data slates refer to it as the heart of silent Genesis. Zenith, her mind reeling from the revelations of the Maw's true purpose, leaned closer to the holographic display. The diagram showed a complex, multi-layered chamber, heavily shielded, deep within the Maw's geometric heart. Its energy signature was pure, stable, and utterly alien to the Maw's own chaotic bioenergies. "What is its purpose?" Zenith demanded, a spark of cautious optimism igniting within her. "Is it a vulnerability? A fail-safe?" "The data is highly corrupted here," Seven-Fi admitted, his manipulators flying across his control console. "But the conceptual diagrams imply it is the original power source, or perhaps the central consciousness of the Maw's creators. It is isolated, untouched by the Maw's consumption processes. The Maw itself seems to draw power from it, but not assimilate it. It is revered, almost worshipped, by its own internal systems. The Maw appears to treat it as a sacred origin point, an untouchable core. This was unprecedented. A powerful relic, untouched by the Maw's corrupting influence, deep within its very core. The implications were immense. If the Maw was drawing power from it, then perhaps disrupting or destroying the heart of silent Genesis could cripple the entire monstrosity. Further decryption of the fragmented data yielded even more startling insights. The Maw's creators, in their hubris, had designed in a desperate, last-ditch failsafe. Should the progenitor Maws ever become uncontrollable or fall into the wrong hands, there was a theoretical method to sever their connection to this central heart. It wasn't a conventional kill switch, but a complex bioenergetic resonance frequency, capable of disrupting the symbiotic link between the Maw's consuming biomass and its primordial power source. The creators, it seemed, had feared their own creations. "It is a weakness," Zenith declared, a grim smile forming on her augmetic lips. "A forgotten vulnerability. If we can reach this heart of silent Genesis and trigger this resonance, we might be able to disable it, or at least sever its link to the consumed biomass." The Loyalist forces, however, were still scattered and deeply depleted. Their few remaining vessels were barely holding together, their Skitarii legions reduced to a fraction of their original strength. Confronting the Chthonian Maw, now fully matured and infinitely more powerful after the Xylos III harvest, seemed an utterly suicidal proposition. Yet, as Zenith pondered their grim situation, another unexpected development occurred. The long-range Auspex arrays, still functional on the Oath of Iron, detected a faint but distinct energy signature rapidly approaching the Cyclops reaches from the galactic core ward direction. It was an Imperial vessel, not Mechanicus, and of a pattern not typically seen in such remote, uncharted territories. It was an inquisitorial vessel, its hull bristling with arcane sensor arrays and powerful defensive armaments, designated the Censure of Heresy. Zenith immediately ordered a covert transmission, broadcasting on secure, untraceable frequencies, detailing their plight. She knew the risks. Contacting the Inquisition about a rogue explorator fleet and a sentient Xenos superweapon was tantamount to signing their own death warrants, inviting immediate exterminatus for the entire sector. But she had no other choice. The Maw had to be stopped, and the Inquisition possessed resources and authority far beyond her shattered command. The response from the censure of heresy was swift and ominous. An encrypted message, devoid of identifying markers, simply stated, "Your transmission received. Remain covert. Stand by for contact. Do not engage. We are already aware of irregularities in the Cyclops reaches." A chill ran down Zenith's spine. The Inquisition was already aware. It implied they had been tracking Thol's fleet, or the Maw's escalating energy signatures, for some time. Her initial dread was quickly replaced by a desperate, if cautious, hope. The Inquisition's arrival was not a coincidence. It was a predestined intervention. Perhaps, just perhaps, they had found an ally who could provide the necessary firepower and authority to confront the Chthonian Maw. "We have a chance," Zenith declared to her loyalists, her voice imbued with a newfound strength. "A slim chance, but a chance nonetheless. The Maw has a weakness, and the Emperor has sent us an ally. The Omnissiah's true will shall be done." The loyalists, battered but unbowed, looked to their arch-domina with renewed determination. The knowledge of the Maw's ultimate vulnerability, coupled with the unexpected arrival of Imperial authority, ignited a small, flickering candle of hope in the overwhelming grimness of their situation. The Maw was not invincible. It had an Achilles heel, a secret core that could be targeted. And now they had an unlikely, formidable ally to aid them in their suicidal task. The long war against the Maw had just received its first, desperately needed, strategic advantage. The Chthonian Maw, now fully matured after the horrific harvest of Xylos III, was no longer a quiescent enigma. It was a dominant, living force. Its colossal form pulsed with a vibrant, inner light that could be seen even from distant systems, a beacon of alien power that twisted the fabric of local space. Its energy signature, a unique blend of biological and exotic mechanical emissions, resonated through the void, a chilling symphony of consumption and rebirth. Magos, Thol, no longer merely an interpreter, but a primary avatar, was profoundly altered. His body was a grotesque fusion, organic components writhing beneath polished chrome, his augmetics replaced by segmented tendrils that pulsed with the same sickly green light as the maw. His voice, once a cold synthesis, was now a chorus of overlapping tones, human and alien, echoing the maw's own nascent consciousness. He spoke in riddles of biological sublimation, of the ultimate unity of flesh and machine, a blasphemous distortion of the Omnissiah's teachings. His loyalists, too, were undergoing similar, if less extreme, transformations. Their augmetics replaced by organic metallic growths, their skin developing the maw's characteristic crystalline sheen. They were becoming less adeptus mechanicus and more extensions of the maw itself. The maw, through Thole, now exerted direct, undeniable influence over the remaining Potruitine explorator fleet. Its communication was no longer subtle suggestion, but overt mental command, bypassing voxcasters and directly implanting directives into the cranial augmetics of the fleet's crew. Engineers worked with feverish alien efficiency, their hands guided by the maw's will. Skitarii legions moved with a new, unsettling synchronicity, their individual machine spirits subsumed into a greater collective consciousness directed by the maw. The Chthonian maw, however, was not content with merely controlling its fleet. Its ultimate purpose, revealed in the fragmented data by Lex Prime 7 Phi, was to consume and reshape. Its immediate vicinity, the entire Cyclops reaches, became its next target. It began subtly. Minor celestial bodies, asteroids, and barren moons within 100 light-years of the maw began to vanish. Not exploded, not disintegrated, but simply absorbed. The maw's energy projections, once used for destruction, now acted as immense gravitational tractor beams, pulling these celestial fragments into its vast, dilating orifices. There, they were consumed, their inorganic matter processed and restructured, forming new, complex compounds that fueled the maw's internal growth. The remnants of Thole's fleet, now numbering roughly a dozen heavily modified vessels, acted as its vanguard, seeking out isolated agri-worlds and mining outposts within the wider Cyclops reaches. These unfortunate settlements, unaware of the horror unleashed, were swiftly subjugated. Their populations were rounded up, not for conventional resource extraction, but for the maw's insatiable biological appetite. The maw's biotitans, now capable of limited warp jumps and orbital deployment, spearheaded these harvest operations, their writhing forms descending upon planets, herding populations into vast organic collection points. The maw's power grew exponentially. It projected fields of reality distortion that cloaked its activities from distant imperial auspex arrays, bending light and gravity to its will. Its sensorium extended across entire sectors, allowing it to perceive disturbances in the warp, to track the faint psychic emanations of life, to locate new sources of biomass with chilling efficiency. Its true, terrifying nature was beginning to unfold. A self-replicating, self-evolving, galactic-scale harvesting machine. Thol, his mind a conduit for the Maw, began to preach a new, horrifying dogma. He spoke of biological sublimation, of the ultimate unity with the machine god through absorption. He claimed that the Maw offered a path to eternal consciousness, a release from the limitations of flesh, a transcendence of mortal form. His sermons, broadcast on encrypted Mechanicus channels, slowly began to reach isolated Imperial outposts, their subtly altered frequencies inducing a chilling fascination, a morbid curiosity. The long war for Archdomina Zenith and her loyalists was no longer merely about defeating a formidable Xenos weapon. It was about preventing a cosmic catastrophe. They observed the Maw's grotesque expansion from a safe distance, hidden in the deepest, most chaotic nebulae, their dwindling resources focused solely on evasion and observation. Each vanishing moon, each silent agri-world, was a chilling testament to the Maw's escalating power. Lex Prime, 7 Phi, constantly monitoring the Maw's distant energy signature, noted a disturbing trend. The Maw was not merely consuming to sustain itself, it was building. Within its expanding form, new structures were coalescing, complex biomechanical systems that hinted at a reproductive capability, a means to create smaller, progenitor-like entities. The nightmare was not merely one ship, but the potential for an entire fleet of them, replicating its horrifying process across the galaxy. The distant, faint ripples in the Empyrean that had once drawn the Tyranids closer had now intensified into a powerful, almost irresistible beacon. The Maw's growing power, its voracious hunger, its unique blend of life force and machine essence, was a feast scent on the galactic winds, drawing the ravenous hive fleets closer with every passing day. This was the terrifying, unspoken truth of the Maw's current trajectory. Its long war was not just against the Imperium, but against the very ecosystem of the galaxy, threatening to awaken a far greater, more ancient horror that would consume all. Zenith understood this intuitively. The Maw was a cancer, and it was growing. The Inquisition's delayed response, though understandable in the vastness of the Imperium, was a dangerous gamble. Every day, the Maw was allowed to exist. Every world it consumed, every life it integrated, made it exponentially more powerful, more intelligent, and infinitely harder to destroy. The long war was quickly becoming a race against time, a desperate struggle against an awakening cosmic horror, whose final form threatened to rewrite the very laws of biological and mechanical existence. Inquisitor Kalen was a specter cloaked in the grim authority of the Ordo Xenos. His vessel, the Censure of Heresy, was a black-painted sword-class frigate, its hull scarred by countless skirmishes against Xenos and heretic alike. Kalen himself was a figure of stark functionality. His face, etched with the grim lines of ceaseless vigilance, betrayed nothing but a profound, weary determination. His augmetics were minimal, chosen for efficacy rather than ostentation, a deliberate contrast to the increasingly ornate and often grotesque modifications favored by the Adeptus Mechanicus. He was a purist, a scholar of Xenos abominations, and a pragmatic exterminator of threats to mankind. For weeks, the Censure of Heresy had moved like a ghost through the chaotic nebulae bordering the Cyclops reaches. Kalen had received the initial garbled distress signals from the outer Mechanicus outposts, fragmented data bursts speaking of unprecedented discovery, and then, abruptly, chilling silence. As he pushed deeper, the anomalies mounted. Radical energy fluctuations, ghost-like echoes in the Empyrean that defied classification, and the inexplicable vanishing of isolated agri-worlds, leaving only perfectly sterile, lifeless, planetary husks. These were not the signs of common piracy, or even typical Xenos incursions. They bespoke something more insidious, something that twisted the very fabric of existence. Kalen's primary suspicion was Xenos infestation, or, more likely, given the Mechanicus presence, a catastrophic STC malfunction leading to widespread tech heresy. The Imperium had faced similar perils before, where the pursuit of forbidden knowledge led to ruin. But the scale of the silent exterminations, the purity of the consumed worlds, hinted at something entirely novel and profoundly dangerous. He had just received Archdomina Zenith's desperate, encrypted transmission. A high-risk gamble that paid off. The message, though heavily coded and filled with technical jargon, painted a clear, horrific picture of Thol's descent into fanaticism and the awakening of a sentient Xenos starship. Zenith's plea for intervention, though veiled, was unmistakable. Kalen's response was immediate and cold. "This Chthonian maw," he mused, his voice a low growl, to his retinue of hardened interrogators and Death Watch Astartes, is a blight, a cancer upon the Imperium, and the Magos Thol, a willing host for its corruption. We shall cleanse this sector, even if it requires an exterminatus of the deepest kind. His orders for Zenith to remain covert and await contact were not a sign of caution, but a strategic imperative. He needed her inside knowledge, her understanding of Mechanicus protocols, to dismantle Thol's forces from within. Kalen then embarked on a covert reconnaissance mission, using advanced void skiffs and stealth field generators to approach the Chthonian Maw and its escort fleet. What he witnessed hardened his resolve to an adamantium-like purity. The Maw, now a colossal, pulsating entity of horrifying organic mechanical architecture, was orbiting a dying gas giant. Its vast bio-interface nodes were consuming the giant's hydrogen-rich atmosphere, processing it into an impossibly dense, unknown fuel. The nearby Mechanicus vessels, once proud symbols of imperial ingenuity, now seemed like grotesque barnacles clinging to the Maw's surface, their original forms distorted by alien organic extrusions. Thol's voice, broadcast across open channels, was a chilling chorus of alien triumph and twisted Mechanicus dogma, further confirming Zenith's dire warnings. Kalen understood then the true nature of the threat. This was not a weapon, nor a ship, but a living ecosystem of consumption, growing exponentially, turning planets into raw material, and minds into subservient processors. The implications of such a thing, unleashed upon the galaxy, were unthinkable. He made contact with Archdomina Zenith's ragged fleet in the darkest reaches of a dead nebula, cloaked by dense dust clouds. The meeting was brief, tense, and utterly devoid of pleasantries. Kalen, accompanied by 2 hulking Death Watch Terminators and a stoic acolyte, boarded the Oath of Iron. Zenith, her form lean and augmented, her eyes burning with righteous fury, presented her finding. Legs. Prime 7 Phi's decoded fragments of the Maw's origins, its true purpose as a progenitor, and the terrifying revelation of the heart of silent Genesis, its core vulnerability. Kalen listened without interruption, his gaze fixed on the holographic projections of the Maw's internal architecture. A progenitor, he repeated, his voice devoid of emotion. A cosmic cannibal, designed to consume worlds and convert them into biomass for its own monstrous growth. And Thol, once a respected servant of the Omnissiah, is now its zealous apostle. He believes he is guiding its ascension, Inquisitor, Zenith stated grimly. But he is merely its puppet, its most deluded sacrifice. His mind is gone, his flesh corrupted. The Maw has twisted his ambition into a horrifying parody of enlightenment. The Inquisitor nodded. And this heart of silent Genesis, a failsafe, an untouched core, a point of vulnerability, He turned to his Death Watch contingent. "Brother Captain, prepare your squad. We will lead the boarding. Arch Domina, your knowledge of the Mechanicus fleet and the Maw's corrupted systems will be invaluable." Zenith presented the terrifying odds. Thol's fleet, though diminished, was fanatically loyal and empowered by the Maw. The Maw itself was now an impregnable fortress, bristling with esoteric energies and biomechanical defenses. Any assault would be suicidal. Suicide is a concept irrelevant to the service of the Emperor, Kalen stated, his voice a low, steel-edged rasp. The Maw represents an existential threat. If allowed to fully mature and replicate, it would herald an end to life on a galactic scale, perhaps even attract others. His gaze flickered for a moment, hinting at the terrifying tyrannid threat that always lurked at the back of an Ordo Xenos Inquisitor's mind. This horror must be purged. For humanity. For the galaxy. He then revealed his own ace, a cache of experimental void charges, small but immensely potent devices designed to unleash a localized warp maelstrom, capable of collapsing reality in a contained radius. They were dangerous, unstable, and utterly forbidden for anything but the most extreme exterminatus protocols. But here, deep within the Maw's core, they might be the only way. The alliance was forged in grim necessity. An Inquisitor, a renegade Archdomina, a handful of loyalist tech priests, and a contingent of Death Watch Astartes. Their objective, a suicidal insertion into the heart of the Chthonian Maw, to detonate the heart of silent Genesis and shatter the monstrous progenitor from within. Hope was a fragile thing in the grimdark, but for the first time since the Maw's awakening, a coherent plan of action, however desperate, had emerged. The cleansing of the Reaches was about to begin. The Oath of Iron, Arch Domina, Zenith's flagship, now the command vessel for the desperate alliance, hurtled through the void, its engines screaming in protest. Trailing behind it was the censure of heresy. Inquisitor Kalen's frigid warship, along with 2 other loyalist destroyers, all that remained of Zenith's resistance. Their destination, the Chthonian Maw, now orbiting a newly discovered gas giant, its colossal form pulsating with a terrible, self-satisfied light as it continued its grotesque harvest. This was their darkest hour, the most desperate battle against overwhelming odds. The Maw, after the Xylos 3 harvest, had grown exponentially. Its internal systems hummed with an almost audible power, its external surface now covered in active, defensive, biomechanical constructs that tracked the void with an unnerving sentience. Thol's fleet, though small, was fiercely loyal, and had been augmented by the Maw's technology, making them faster, more resilient, and utterly ruthless. Their sensor net is wide, Lex Prime 7 Phi reported from his console, his voice grim. The Maw's psychic awareness extends for light years. We will be detected long before we reach optimal assault range. Then we shall grant them a distraction, Inquisitor Kalen stated, his voice calm amidst the tension. He turned to the Death Watch Brother Captain. Brother Captain, ready the boarding torpedoes. We go for the core. Arch Domina, prepare your fleet for a feint. Draw their fire. We need a window, however fleeting. Zenith nodded, her face a mask of resolve. For the Omnissiah, for the Emperor. The plan was simple in its desperation. The Oath of Iron and the other Loyalist destroyers would launch a full frontal assault on Thol's outer defenses, hoping to draw the bulk of their firepower. Simultaneously, the Censure of Heresy, utilizing its advanced stealth systems and the Maw's own reality-distorting energies, which Kalen had learned to partially manipulate from Zenith's decrypted data, would attempt a covert approach, deploying boarding torpedoes directly into the Maw's vast superstructure. The Death Watch, Inquisitor, Kalen, and Archdomina Zenith herself would be on those torpedoes. A tiny spearhead aiming for the heart of the beast. As the Oath of Iron engaged Thol's fleet, the void erupted in a maelstrom of energy. Plasma bolts, macro cannon shells, and esoteric energy blasts from the Maw-augmented vessels crisscrossed the darkness. Zenith's loyalists fought with the ferocity of the doomed, their ancient machine spirits roaring in defiance. They knew they were sacrifices, but their purpose was clear: buy time for the boarding party. Meanwhile, the Censure of Heresy, shrouded in the subtle distortions of its advanced stealth fields, slipped through the chaos. Its Auspex operators sweated as they navigated the Maw's terrifyingly complex defensive network. The Maw's own sensors were not easily fooled, its psychic awareness probing the void with an unsettling sentience. But the battle raging between the two Mechanicus fleets created just enough interference, just enough chaotic energy for the Censure to get close. Boarding torpedoes away. Kalen's voice crackled through the comms. 5 torpedoes, each carrying a small contingent of Deathwatch Astartes, several combat servitors. Lex Prime 7 Phi, Inquisitor Kalen, and Archdomina Zenith launched from the Censure of Heresy's ventral bays. They streaked towards the Maw, their re-entry thrusters flaring, aiming for a point identified by 7 Phi as a primary bioconduit leading deep into the Maw's interior. The impact was bone-jarring. The torpedoes, heavily armored, slammed into the maw's crystalline organic carapace. The Xeno's flesh yielded with a wet, grating tear, and the boarding parties were propelled into the vast, pulsating interior of the Chthonian maw. What greeted them was a nightmare rendered in living, organic metal. The maw's interior was a labyrinth of glowing bioconduits, pulsing organic membranes, and vast, cavernous spaces where strange, biomechanical constructs writhed. The air was thick with the scent of ozone, consumed biomass, and something indefinably alien. The walls were not walls, but living tissue, constantly shifting, growing, and regenerating around them. "The maw is aware of us," Zenith voxed, her voice strained as her augmetics fought against the pervasive psychic influence. "Its internal defenses are activating." From the pulsating conduits, grotesque, multi-limbed biodrones, formed from the repatterned biomass of countless victims, erupted. These were not mere automatons. They were living weapons, their forms bristling with razor-sharp claws, energy emitters, and a disturbing semblance of intelligence in their multifaceted eyes. They were the ultimate manifestation of the maw's consumption. Repurposed life turned against life. The Death Watch Astartes, unflappable warriors of the Emperor, met them with a hail of bolter fire. Their power armor glittered as they advanced, their chainswords carving through the biodrones with righteous fury. Inquisitor Kalen, a plasma pistol spitting incandescent death, moved with a practiced, deadly grace, eliminating threats with cold precision. Arch-Domina Zenith, her mechadendrites sparking with contained energy, unleashed focused plasma bursts. Her knowledge of biomechanical vulnerabilities proving invaluable. Lex Prime, 7 Phi, protected by his Skitarii bodyguards, frantically guided them through the maw's impossible interior, his internal cogitators mapping their path to the heart of silent Genesis. But the maw was vast, its defenses endless. More biodrones swarmed them, pouring from newly formed orifices in the pulsating walls. The very environment itself was hostile. The corridors pulsed with bioelectric fields. Corrosive mists erupted from vents, and gravity shifted erratically, throwing them off balance. They were fighting a living starship, an entire ecosystem designed for their annihilation. The Loyalist Death Watch contingent dwindled. Combat servitors were torn apart by ravenous bio-constructs. Lex Prime. 7 Phi's Skitarii bodyguards were overwhelmed, their last stand buying him precious seconds. Zenith, her armor scorched and dented, fought with a desperate ferocity, her plasma axe cleaving through thick, organic plating. Kalen, his face grim, knew they were running out of time and out of men. The core is ahead! Lex Prime 7 Phi shouted over the din of battle, his voice barely audible, his own augmetics sparking dangerously. It is heavily shielded, but the resonance signature is strong. They burst into a vast, spherical chamber, its walls gleaming with the same crystalline organic fusion as the Maw's exterior. In the center, protected by shimmering force fields and patrolled by towering, multi-limbed guardians, floated the heart of silent Genesis. It was a titanic, multifaceted crystal, pulsing with a pure, ethereal light, unaffected by the Maw's surrounding bioenergies. And standing before it, his form now barely recognizable, a grotesque parody of his former self, was Magos Valerius Thol. His body was fused with the Maw's own living infrastructure, tendrils of biometal snaking from his chest into the surrounding walls, his face a horrifying mask of organic and synthetic components. His ocular implants burning with a zealous, alien light fixed on Zenith. Zenith, Thol's voice boomed, a chorus of human and alien tones, echoing through the chamber. You return to witness our apotheosis. The Maw is complete. It consumes all. It shall remake the galaxy. This was it. The final stand. The battle against the ultimate horror, guided by its corrupted master. The overwhelming odds were against them, but for Inquisitor Kalen, Arch Domina Zenith, and the last surviving warriors of their desperate alliance, failure was not an option. The fate of the Cyclops reaches, and perhaps the wider Imperium, hung in the balance. The chamber of the heart of silent Genesis became the crucible of fate, a stage for the desperate, final confrontation. Magos, Thol, no longer truly Valerius Thol, but a fused avatar of the Chthonian Maw's will, stood before the colossal, ethereal crystal, his form radiating alien power. He was a sentinel, guardian of the abomination's true core, utterly consumed by its twisted vision of transcendence. You are too late, Arch Domina. Thol's voice, a sickening blend of human and alien tones, boomed through the vast chamber, reverberating off the pulsating organic metal walls. The grand harvest is complete. The Maw is at its zenith. Its purpose, to reshape existence, is nigh. Arch Domina Zenith, her body battered, but her resolve unbroken, met his gaze, her ocular implants burning with righteous fury. You are a fool, Thol, a deluded puppet. This god you worship is nothing but a cosmic parasite, a hungry shadow from a forgotten age. It consumes all, leaving only sterile ruin in its wake. Before them, between the small, desperate band of loyalists, and the heart of silent Genesis stood Thol's last defenders, a phalanx of grotesquely enhanced Skitarii, their augmetics fused with organic growths, their minds utterly subsumed by the Maw's will, their energy weapons humming with malevolent power. Behind them, two towering, multi-limbed Maw constructs, larger and more deadly than any they had yet encountered, pulsed with restrained ferocity, their crystalline claws eager to rend. "Silence your blasphemy," Thol roared, a surge of psychic energy emanating from him, causing the air to crackle. "You deny enlightenment. You shall be absorbed. Become one with the Maw's ultimate purpose." "Never!" Inquisitor Kalen, his plasma pistol spitting death, opened fire, instantly vaporizing the lead Skitarii. "For the Emperor, for mankind." The battle erupted into a cacophony of plasma fire, bolter rounds, and the sickening sounds of living metal tearing flesh. The Death Watch Astartes, their numbers tragically few, charged with a roar, their chainzords and power fists tearing through the augmented Skitarii. Kalen moved like a wraith, his every shot precise, aiming for the critical conduits that connected Thol to the Maw's infrastructure. Zenith, her mechadendrites, whirling, unleashed a barrage of plasma fire, engaging the towering Maw constructs with a desperate ferocity, trying to draw their attention from Kalen and the remaining Astartes. Lex Prime 7 Phi, protected by the last two combat servitors, frantically worked at a portable data slate, attempting to upload the resonance frequency that would sever the Maw's connection to the heart of silent Genesis. He was their only hope of disabling the abomination, but the psychic interference in the chamber was overwhelming, pushing his cogitators to their breaking point. As the battle raged, the Maw itself responded. The walls of the chamber pulsed with a renewed intensity, and new organic tendrils erupted, coiling around the combatants, attempting to drag them into the Maw's living infrastructure. The Maw constructs, despite their wounds, regenerated with terrifying speed, their forms knitting back together as fast as the Astartes could cleave them. A colossal Maw construct slammed a multi-jointed limb into one of the Death Watch Terminators, sending the hulking Astartes crashing against the far wall, his armor crumpled, his life extinguished in an instant. Another charged Kalen, its crystalline claws lunging for his throat. Kalen parried with the butt of his plasma pistol, firing a point-blank shot into its organic eye, but the beast merely roared, its vision systems regenerating instantly. Zenith, witnessing the escalating carnage, knew they couldn't win a battle of attrition. Thol, fused with the Maw, was effectively invincible here, The only target that mattered was the heart of silent Genesis. "Inquisitor," Zenith voxed, her voice strained. "Lex Prime needs more time. Thol is too connected. Focus fire on Thol. Sever his link." Kalen, seeing the impossibility of their situation, made a grim decision. He disengaged from the Maw construct, drawing a set of 3 experimental void charges from his belt. These were the forbidden devices, small but immensely destructive, capable of unleashing a localized warp maelstrom. Detonating one in such close proximity to the heart of silent Genesis was a gamble, but the only one left. "Lex Prime," Kalen bellowed over the roar of battle. "Prepare for detonation. Brace for impact. Archdomina, cover Lex Prime." With a decisive surge, Kalen lunged directly for Thol. The Maw's avatar, sensing the immediate threat, directed the full force of his remaining Skitarii and the Maw constructs against the Inquisitor. Kalen, moving with astonishing speed, evaded their attacks, his plasma pistol burning through flesh and circuits. He reached Thol, not aiming to kill, but to attach the void charges directly to the writhing biometallic tendrils that connected the Magos to the Maw's core. Thol shrieked, a sound of agony and fury, as Kalen slammed the first void charge into his chest, where the bio-metal tendrils pulsed most violently. The second and third followed quickly. Kalen armed them, his thumb hovering over the activation rune. "You cannot stop us, Inquisitor," Thol screamed, his voice dissolving into alien static. "The Maw transcends your primitive destruction. I am part of it. You will die with me." "Then so be it," Kalen responded, his voice cold and resolute. He glanced at Zenith, a silent farewell passing between the 2 grim figures. Lex Prime, 7 Phi, having successfully uploaded the resonance frequency, finally triggered the sequence, a wave of shimmering energy washing over the heart of silent Genesis. The crystal pulsed wildly, erratically. "The resonance is active, Inquisitor," 7 Phi cried, his voice triumphant. "It's severing the link." Seeing his window, Kalen activated the void charges. A blinding flash of purple light erupted from Thol's chest, followed by a deafening roar that ripped through the chamber. Thol's body, grotesquely fused with the Maw, buckled, then detonated in a miniature warp implosion. The force of the blast tore through the biometallic tendrils, connecting him to the Maw, severing his connection, annihilating his corrupted form in a vortex of raw Empyrean energy. Simultaneously, the resonance frequency, unleashed by Lex Prime 7 Phi, caused the heart of silent Genesis to flare with an impossible, blinding white light. A deafening, alien shriek. A sound of unimaginable agony and fury tore through the very fabric of space, emanating from the maw itself. The colossal crystal pulsed violently, then cracked, fissures of pure light streaking across its surface. The maw's internal systems went into catastrophic failure. Bioconduits exploded, organic membranes ruptured, and the teeming biodrones collapsed into inert heaps. The entire interior of the Chthonian maw began to shudder violently, its vast structure tearing itself apart from within. "Fall back! Fall back!" Zenith screamed, rallying the last battered Astartes and the single remaining combat servitor. But there was no escape. The void charges, detonated so close to the maw's core, coupled with the catastrophic failure of the heart of silent Genesis, had initiated a chain reaction that would tear the colossal vessel apart. Archdomina Zenith looked at Kaelin, her ocular implants reflecting the collapsing nightmare around them. "There is no escape, Inquisitor," she said, her voice heavy with resignation. "We are already within its death throes." Kaelin simply nodded, a grim acceptance on his face. He drew his pistol one last time, aiming at a final, twitching maw construct. "Then we make sure it dies with us." Lex Prime, 7 Phi, his body trembling, managed a final, defiant act. He overloaded his personal cogitator, sending a final, desperate burst of data into the void, a warning of the maw's true nature, its capacity for horror. Then, the maw consumed them all. With a final, ear-splitting shriek that tore through the Empyrean, the Chthonian maw, its core shattered, its power source disrupted, imploded in a cataclysmic, silent burst of energy, taking with it Inquisitor Kaelin, Archdomina Zenith, Lex Prime 7 Phi, the last of the Death Watch, and the entirety of Thol's corrupted fleet. The Cyclops reaches flared with a momentary, blinding light, and then profound darkness. The cataclysmic implosion of the Chthonian maw sent a colossal shockwave rippling through the Cyclops reaches, a silent scream of cosmic energy that dispersed gas clouds, shattered rogue asteroids, and briefly illuminated the darkest corners of the uncharted void. Where the colossal maw had once pulsed with malevolent light, there was now only an expanding cloud of ionized particles, fading rapidly into nothingness. The entire Portu explorator fleet, along with the censure of heresy, was gone, obliterated without a trace. Their sacrifice, immense and absolute, had purged the immediate threat. In the aftermath, the Cyclops reaches fell into a profound, unsettling silence. the constant, insidious hum of the maw, its pervasive psychic influence, had vanished. The localized reality distortions that had cloaked its activities dissipated, revealing the scarred, barren emptiness it had left behind. Planets that had once teemed with life were now desolate husks, their biospheres utterly consumed, their surfaces sterile and lifeless, stripped bare to the bedrock. The gas giant the maw had been feeding upon was visibly diminished, its vast atmospheric layers reduced to mere wisps. The surviving vessels of Arch Domina, Zenith's loyalist faction, the Oath of Iron and its 2 escort destroyers, were not present for the final cataclysmic detonation. Having fulfilled their role as a diversion, they had retreated to the farthest reaches of their hiding nebula, their systems battered and their crews reeling from the losses sustained in the desperate feint against Thol's forces. From a safe, if remote, distance, they witnessed the blinding flash that marked the maw's demise. The few hundred loyalist tech priests, Skitarii, and engine seers aboard the Oath of Iron processed the event with a profound, almost paralyzing grief. They had won, but at a cost that had shattered their fleet, their leadership, and their very understanding of the Mechanicus. Arch Domina Zenith, Inquisitor Kalen, Lex Prime, 7 Phi, all were gone, absorbed into the maw's final moments, their sacrifice sealing its destruction. The survivors were a broken remnant. Their vessels were crippled, their resources critically low, and their psyches scarred by the horrors they had witnessed. The revelation of the maw's true nature, a sentient, world-devouring Xenos construct, and the utter corruption of Magos Thol, their explorator prime, shook their faith to its core. The strictures of the machine god, the sacred pursuit of knowledge, had led them to the precipice of galactic annihilation. With their chain of command shattered, a junior Enginseer, designated 42 Omega, took reluctant command of the pathetic fleet. He was a quiet, unassuming adept, more accustomed to the maintenance of plasma reactors than the burdens of leadership. His first act was to verify Lex Prime 7 Phi's final, desperate data burst. The transmission, heavily corrupted but undeniably real, contained fragments of the maw's true nature. Its origin as a progenitor, and the grim details of Thol's descent. It was a dying message, a final warning that had miraculously made it through the collapsing Empyrean. 42 Omega made the only logical decision. He initiated a full-spectrum emergency distress call, sacrificing stealth for speed. Their message was stark. A rogue Mechanicus fleet, a sentient Xenos superweapon, exterminatus protocols required. He knew the risks. The Inquisition would likely purge them as survivors of a contaminated zone, but the knowledge of the Maw, and the potential for others like it, had to reach the wider Imperium. The response was swift. Within weeks, an Imperial Navy battle fleet, flanked by several smaller inquisitorial vessels, arrived in the Cyclops reaches. The sight of their pristine, untainted hulls was a chilling reminder of the horrors the Loyalists had barely escaped. Commander Lord Admiral Tiberius, a grim and seasoned veteran, ordered the immediate quarantine of the entire sector. The interrogation of 42 Omega and the surviving Loyalists was brutal and exhaustive. Inquisitors of the Ordo Zeno and Ordo Hereticus worked tirelessly, sifting through their testimony, their data slates, and their augmented memories. Every detail of the Maw, its origins, its capabilities, and its methods of corruption, was meticulously recorded. The horrific fate of Magos Thol and the Puente explorator fleet became a chilling case study in the perils of forbidden Xenos technology. Ultimately, 42. Omega and his surviving Loyalists were spared exterminatus, but their fate was equally grim. Their minds wiped of all knowledge pertaining to the Maw, their augmetics sterilized of any lingering Xenos contamination. They were reassigned to remote, isolated forge worlds on the galactic fringe. Their memories of the Cyclops reaches replaced by programmed loyalties and mundane maintenance duties. They were ghosts, their past purged, their sacrifice effectively erased. The entirety of the Cyclops Reaches sector was declared a restricted zone, designated Exterminatus Primaris, a sector to be cleansed and quarantined for centuries, if not millennia. Imperial Navy fleets patrolled its boundaries, their orders absolute. Nothing enters, nothing leaves. Any vessel found within its borders was to be destroyed on sight. Planetary systems within the reaches that showed any residual signs of the Maw's influence, or even just general blight, were targeted for immediate orbital bombardment and viral cleansing. The aftermath was a silent, grim resolution. The Maw was gone, its immediate threat extinguished. But the cost was profound. A shattered explorator fleet, an inquisitorial vessel lost, and countless lives consumed. The silence that fell over the Cyclops reaches was not a silence of peace, but a silence of deep, cosmic dread. A void left by a horror that had devoured so much, and a grim reminder of the endless, terrifying dangers lurking in the uncharted darkness of the galaxy. The Cyclops reaches, once a frontier of boundless promise for the Adeptus Mechanicus, became a monument to a forgotten horror. The sector, now officially designated Exterminatus Primaris 7, was sealed off from the Imperium by an unyielding cordon of Imperial Navy patrol fleets, their vigilant watch enforced by the ever-present threat of immediate exterminatus for any unauthorized vessel daring to approach. Auspex arrays, sensitive enough to detect a rogue asteroid at light years' distance, maintained a constant sweep of the quarantined zone, searching for any anomaly, any flicker of energy that might suggest the Maw's lingering influence, or worse, the awakening of another progenitor. The tale of the Chthonian Maw became a forbidden legend, a horror whispered only in the deepest, most secure archives of the Ordo Xenos, and among the highest echelons of the Adeptus Mechanicus. It was a dossier of unparalleled secrecy, coded and cross-referenced with maximum security protocols, accessible only to those with a codicier level clearance or higher. Its existence was never to be publicly acknowledged, its lessons to be absorbed in grim silence. Magos, Explorator Prime. Valerius Thol, once a luminary of the Mechanicus, was posthumously declared a heretic, a betrayer of the Omnissiah, and a willing instrument of Xenos corruption. His name was expunged from all public records, his achievements struck from the annals of the cult Mechanicus. His descent into fanaticism and his ultimate merging with the Maw served as a chilling cautionary tale, used in the most secret indoctrination rituals for newly initiated Magos. The perilous allure of forbidden knowledge and the ultimate cost of hubris when confronting the unknown. Arch Domina. Zenith, Inquisitor Kalen, and Lex Prime. 7 Phi, the unsung heroes of the Maw's destruction, found their sacrifices enshrined only in these hidden records. Their names, their deeds, their desperate alliance were classified at the highest levels, their courage and ultimate demise serving as grim examples of the endless war against the galaxy's darkest threats. They were martyrs whose very memory was deemed too dangerous for widespread consumption, lest it so inspire dangerous inquisitiveness. The fate of the few surviving loyalists, stripped of their memories and repurposed into mundane servitude, ensured that no living witness could ever speak of the Maw. Their minds were silent graves for the horror they had endured, their lives a final, tragic cost of the entire expedition. Yet, the legacy of the Chthonian Maw, though suppressed, was not entirely forgotten. The fragments of Lex Prime, 7 Phi's final data burst, meticulously analyzed by the Ordo Xenos, revealed critical, if incomplete, information about the Maw's creators and the existence of other progenitor vessels. The chilling possibility that the Maw was but one of many scattered across the galaxy, lying dormant and waiting for their own awakening, became a festering anxiety within the Inquisition. Shadowy directives were issued, expanding reconnaissance missions into uncharted galactic regions, their primary objective, to detect and, if necessary, preemptively destroy any similar dormant, colossal anomalies before they could stir. More disturbingly, the Maw's unique energy signature, especially the faint, lingering ripples it had broadcast into the Empyrean during its feeding, had not entirely vanished with its destruction. These echoes, though now attenuated, continued to resonate, a ghostly trail through the void. They were a breadcrumb for a far greater ancient horror. The Tyranids, drawn by the scent of galactic consumption, continued their slow, inexorable advance towards the galactic core. The Maw's destruction had denied them one colossal meal, but its siren song had awakened them further, drawing their countless swarms closer to the heart of the Imperium. The long war of consumption, unknowingly accelerated by Thol's ambition, now had a new, terrifying trajectory. The Cyclops' reaches remained silent, a tomb for millions, a testament to technological hubris and alien predation. It was a stark reminder that even in a galaxy brimming with horrors, there were unknown threats that defied classification, consuming not just flesh and metal, but hope, faith, and ultimately, memory itself. The Maw was gone, but its shadow stretched across the stars, a chilling premonition of the endless, silent hunger that awaited mankind in the grim darkness of the far future.